Good afternoon. Welcome to the 5th edition of Meet the Dealer, Meet the Motor Trade. And today we are in Brackenfell, Cape Town at Riverside Autos. And we have the privilege to speak to the owner, Morne Lamont, who's going to tell us a bit more about himself, how he started the business, where he comes from, and where he wants to go. So, Morne.
How are you?
I'm fine, are you?
Very well.
I think we had a long enough chat so far.
Yeah, you know more about me than I know about you.
So, Morne, who's Morne Lamont? Where are you from?
Morne Lamont's Morne Lamont.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the people who know him know exactly what I'll say. I'm born in Vereniging, grew up in the Veldriehoek, as they call it. Came down to Cape Town in 95. Ended up in a motor trade after being in the restaurant business for a couple of years. Started at Wingfield Motors end of 96, beginning 97. It's a long time ago, so I can't really remember.
Nor can I.
And yeah, that's how I started. Running a forecourt workshop and then ended up in sales.
So you mentioned earlier that Riverside Auto started in northern suburbs, Goodwood somewhere.
In Goodwood, yeah.
So, and when was that?
That was, I started in 2003, a little wholesaling business called Lamont Auto Traders. Bought a couple of cars, stuck it down one or two dealers. That was after I worked at Autohouse Angel. I was at Wingfield, Autohouse Angel, and then I had a stint at Riverside Supercars in Sea Point, working with John White, running the Lux branch
right.
there.
Yeah, Jack's brother, yeah.
Yeah, Jake's brother.
Jake's
brother, yeah. And then I started on my own, met John de Villiers from Riverside, and I saw this little spot and just ended up that he was on the opposite corner of the business and not having any facilities for that. I approached John de Villiers and said, listen, can't I open a branch on the opposite corner? Okay. And it was across the road from Goodwood Motors, right next to Standard Bank in Goodwood. And that's how I started on my own retailing.
And then you moved here in...
Yeah, I was there...
in Brackenfell?
2003, let's say 2004, I started with John. In 2008, he retired. I took over the business from him. We had an agreement. I paid him out a couple of years ago. And yeah, came to Brackenfell December 2019.
Okay, so you've been here about 7 years now.
Yeah.
And 7 years, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit, it just happened by chance. I started renting half the premises from Heritage Auto. And then they left. And I took a bit of bad timing. On the 1st of March 2020, I signed a double the size lease. When Morne does something big, you know something's going to go wrong.
A good time. It was a good time to start
double your overheads,
a retail used car dealership. And 2 weeks later, they closed us down for COVID. A hell of a time. And
the
you coped.
Best leave I've ever had. Eh?
Is that that's exciting times, eh? Those were exciting times. You know, you open a business, and then suddenly, whoops, there's some little bug that says, hang on.
Yeah.
For the next 2 years, you're going to have put.
Yeah. No,
and you have to survive, eh?
Yeah, I think the first couple of months was very stressful, the unknown. I think anything in life, no matter what industry, I always say the worst that could have happened, I could have still been in the restaurant business, and those got hammered. The hairdressers, the restaurants, those people really got a bad hammering. I think our saving grace that period was the fact that people got payment relief, and they soon realized that if I can trade my car in, I don't have to catch up the reinstallments.
Correct.
And then, you know, if you're a clever salesman, you would say, listen, I'll give you 40 days or 60 days of the contract. That means he saves another installment or two. So I think that was our saving grace after COVID, that we managed to actually do business.
You had to be creative.
Yeah.
If you weren't creative, you were not going to make it.
Yeah.
Or very few were going to make it. So you had to be creative. And also you had to change. In my little business, I had to change, you know. I had to adapt.
Adapt's the right word.
I had to learn how to quickly work this thing on a screen. What was it? Team viewer and the Zoom thing. But it was a nightmare.
Yeah, what we did, we got a rugby group. I played rugby till I was quite old, and you can see I'm a bit of a rugby fanatic. we took Zoom the next level. Sundays we had fines meeting on Zoom. So we would get together all our rugby mates and have a proper fines meeting, and it sort of kept you sane. It kept you sane.
So after COVID, obviously you've made it, you're through, and I walked around earlier with you, or before you, and then with you. It's a very nice spot, I must admit. It's, you know, you're on a beautifully main road, nicely covered, nicely presented. It's actually quite lekker, and I can only say it had to be successful. It must be. So, how many vehicles do you sort of carry in stock?
Depending on what I buy, 35, 40 at a push, but I don't have a floor plan, so it's limited budget. So you got to be innovative. I think the stand also, you can do a lot more than one specific brand or one specific price range. It's a big market. You got a lot of the big ShopRite warehouses are here. You got a lot of truck drivers, people who work, so you can cater for a larger audience.
Yes, of course, you got the PEP, you got
ShopRite,
ShopRite Checkers head office
right across the road. Yeah. And then all the warehouses are here. So we get a lot of truck drivers.
But a commercial and things we buy buckies.
Yeah, smaller businesses, a lot of self-employed people in Brackenfell, a lot of folks trying to do their own thing. And that keeps you alive. I mean, it's sort of, got to have a bucky, you got to have this, and you get the right feel. I think you can't, what's the recipe? I don't think nobody can tell you what the recipe is. This sort of comes natural and know what to buy. And I mean, obviously you want to buy something as cheap as possible, the lowest mileage possible, and sell it for the highest price, but it's not always easy.
And also, I see you don't have a closed-in showroom thing,
No.
which I see, which having a look around, you know, the area actually blends it quite nicely for your cars are nicely viewed. It's clean. I mean, the site is clean. It's always good if a site is clean. Gives you confidence that you're buying from someone.
Yeah, I'm quite pedantic, doing recon the old-fashioned way. You get your cars prepped before the time.
Correct.
Get it roadworthy. You don't want to have a cash deal on the cards and now you got to run around and it's roadworthy faults. And I think that's the biggest thing, is try and keep your nose clean. You can't keep everybody happy, but you can do good business and without being completely, upstream.
I noticed, and you did say earlier that you got a bit of a short temper and you're actually quite full of shit.
Apparently, that's what my wife says.
However, I did notice that, I was hardly on the premises and it just started raining. And then some oak appeared from nowhere to assist me, to help me. That was actually quite impressive, I must admit. I didn't have to walk around a lot trying to hide under the shade cloth covers before someone asked me if I want to do something. This guy just stormed out of the ring and I nearly shat myself.
That's the bouncing, keeps the creatures away.
He might be thinking, gosh, he's coming to steal badges or something like that,
Yeah, good at you had trouble, though.
So, your staff, have they been you for a long time?
Yeah,
and what's your staff complement and stuff like that?
My staff, obviously, unfortunately.
Hold your story. This is compliments of Morne, the glass of wine. Anyway, you carry on.
We lost one of my good employees. It's been with me a long time last year. And I think it's just, sometimes you have argy-bargies and get over it. You blow your top. As long as you sort it out and you carry on from there. Gordon has been with me a while. I found him. Gordon's like my I found him here, he left and he came back. I think just having solid oaks. Patrick, when Albert de Dion closed up, I approached him. Experienced motorman, comes from the corporate. He was at Auto Pedigree. Then he was with Macaulay for a long time with Albert de Dion, who decided he wants to retire. So having just solid, and then I think I'm not oak who sits back and push from the back. I'll rather lead from the front. Help a client. If a car needs to be washed, you wash it. If you need to go and put in fuel for a salesman, he's busy, you do it. And I think it's just that keeps me going.
So how many sales staff do you have then?
I've got 3. Patrick is a sales manager, 2 sales staff. Got 2 drivers, F&I, and my wife does the admin for us.
See, his wife does the admin.
I've got to say that, otherwise we're in trouble there.
Hence him not wearing a tie.
Yeah.
She won't let him buy one.
Conrad, not long enough.
So, Morne, you out here in the northern suburbs and Brackenfell, which is expanding by the terrible. I was just saying to someone earlier that, I mean, this whole area in the last 25 years has expanded to such a rate and is now really becoming a middle to upper,
absolutely.
upper income area, you know, A's and B's, you know. I think it's maybe not so many A's, but the B's and C's, you know, groups and things. And then, so finance, you provide all the normal finance through
all the banks. Maki's on board lately, the new bank. We do a bit of IMAS, rent to own. If it's, I don't promote the rent to own because I think it's a very expensive and. But yeah, there is people who the need is to have a car. It's either have a car or have a job. And then
talk us through this rent to own process.
So rent to own is a couple of companies who does it where they basically they fall outside the NCA, where they would rent a car to you on a long-term lease, and then they basically sell you the car at the final installment. But it's expensive, big deposits. You know, the car that you'll end up paying 3.5 for probably cost you 8,000 Rand on the rent to own. So we always try and look after the clients and see if there's not another way to help them. And I think that's important. You don't want to sell the guy one car. You want to sell him more than one car. You want him to come back and, you know, you can't just knock them over the head and hope the best happens. And it's not the way I do business.
Absolutely.
Or I try not to.
I've been talking in our previous episodes. We've also been talking to shall I call it more mature dealership owners? Dealership owners. And they're all from the old school, but you find that, and I'm going to bring it up again like I did the last one, it's difficult to find young people in the trade as salespeople. Because, you know, it's just an unfortunate business who's created itself a bad name in hundreds of years. So it's so difficult to get someone in to say, actually, this is what I want to do.
You have to make a career out of it.
Make a career, because, you know, if you put your mind to it, in my position, it became my career. I mean, for the last 28 years. And you can make yourself very, very, very decent.
Yeah, without being too, if you've got a bit of common sense.
Yeah.
And
you also have to be responsible.
Yeah.
Sort of attitude.
I think the biggest thing that I find is that I hate is procrastination, and I find that a lot. Just get things done, and yeah. Look, I'm a believer that my F&I is quite young. I think you've got to have young people in your business.
You have to.
Otherwise, you're going to stagnate. But you also got to find the right people. I've tried, and I've also trained a lot of oaks, and then they duck. Some of them either end up in a different field or they become successful, which you don't mind.
No.
You also want to be a mentor to other people.
Of course. You know, it's like the old saying goes, if you want loyalty, buy a dog, you know.
And if it was easy, everybody would have done it.
Exactly.
It's a tough industry. It's not a client the other day said, it's probably no use asking a used car salesman if the car's good. I said, well, after 29 years in the trade, I'm probably the right oak to ask whether you're buying a good car, and it's a stigma that I think is out there, and it's not really. I think in any industry you get that.
In industry you'll get a bad apple.
Yeah,
and that one oak rottens the whole truckload.
But I think it's an industry that's also had a bad name back in the day, and we spoke earlier about. There's so much compliance, so much stuff you got to do. Everything costs you money, so it weighs in your profit.
Yeah.
And by weighing on your profit, cars are getting more expensive. Mm-hmm. You know, like a lot of people would say, but I can get this from WeBuyCars, I can get this from Getworth, I can get this. But by getting more money for your used product, the next car you buy, you're going to pay more because you're actually pushing the market up north. And that's what people don't realize is that, you know, people are earning more money, but they're paying more tax because the tax brackets hasn't shifted. So that's why life's expensive, because you're actually getting less money out on a higher salary.
Correct. That's why they say the middle class are battling. But the fact of the matter is, it's true. And what you're saying about they trying to get that extra 5,000 Rand for the car, look, I appreciate everybody thinks their car's worth a lot of money. I mean, I think my car's worth double the money that it's actually worth, but I mean, that's no one's else business except mine. But they push the envelope and they go to those venues that you've mentioned. I'm not allowed to. And then they get the extra 5,000. But that just permeates in the long row around.
No, I'm not knocking those companies.
No one knocks. When it comes to a dealership like yourselves, at Riverside Auto, you comes back, and eventually that 5,000 rand has to go somewhere.
Yeah, somebody's paying for it.
Somewhere is paying for it.
And well, I think I would say the thing that irritates me or gets my back hair up is that the small businesses, I need to word this very carefully. People go to a fast food chain, let's say one of the biggest drive-through chains, and they'll get bad service the whole time, and they'll complain on Facebook, and they'll complain here, and they'll, but next week they'll go back there and buy again.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's easy, it's convenient. But if a small business makes a mistake, it's like the end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
They don't realize that you are the HR, you are the accountant, you are the buyer, you're overseeing everything. You got 50,000 things you're trying to pull. So give me the gap as well. Yeah.
That has responsibilities to other people.
When the school has a fete, or the church have a fete, or the school wants branding for the rugby kids, the small business gets approached first.
Yes.
I don't see a lot of conglomerates advertising on school jerseys. They advertise on the Blitzbokke and the Springboks and the Proteas and the rugby teams. So give the support. I use a local workshop. I use a local roadworthy.
Yes.
I try my valet shop I've been using for 15 years in Elsie's River. I still drive my cars out to Old.
You still use that old man in
Uncle Charles, yeah.
Yeah.
It was an old family business.
Is he still
took it
there?
over from his dad.
Hey?
I'll still use
And
it.
yeah, he takes cash.
Yeah.
You can never understand.
And don't go there to Friday and not give him cash. Because I pay wages.
Wages.
And I think it's important that people start not sucking their community dry and expect, or the community sucking the businesses dry and not expect to support them. How many times do you see I'm looking to buy a set of headphones and I'll go to that big blue internet company. Instead of saying, but that little oakie at the shop at the shop, right?
He's 10 rand more expensive.
You can have it now. And I think that's what people, it's just live and let live attitude. I think it's important.
So what you're saying, being in a community, rather support the community or the schools, because mom and dad's there.
Yeah.
They see that direct as taking a burden off their pocket, because they would have to pay for the kid to have that fancy top. Then
we sponsored a lot in the area of some rugby teams and that, and at one stage I got to a point where I don't do it anymore. I rather support the kids. I won't put my branding on a jersey. It goes away. I'll rather, if a kid makes Craven Week under 18 and I know the parents doesn't have money, I'll rather support, and I know the money ends up not
where it's supposed to be.
Not by the time it's filtered down to the poor bloke that needs it, that he gets 10 rand of the 1,000 rand you give it. I'll rather pay 1,000 rand into account, or and I try and do that. You can't help everybody.
No, you can't.
You try, and I'll try local. I'll try and kid needs rugby boots, or buy him a voucher at Cape Beauty. I want to Cape Beauty.
I'm local. Can you help me?
Yeah, local. Yeah, and you don't play rugby anymore.
The other question I always ask, and him, Jeremy is the man behind the camera. Thank you for today, Jeremy. I ask, because things, as you said earlier, things are changing so fast. Even though we all still used car salespeople, used car company owners, dealers, dealerships. Well, no, we're actually dealers. But with the car market changing so heavily, as we see now at the moment with all the Chinese brands coming through, and let's make no mistake, they're bloody good-looking cars. And as I was going to say to you earlier, you talked about cars. They actually don't make terrible cars anymore. They make ugly-looking cars like some brands I can name, but let's not go there. But they do make aesthetically good-looking cars. Now, if I come to you tomorrow, or Jeremy, or out down the street, and he has a Tesla, he's had for 2-3 years, would you trade it in?
Depends on what Jeremy's cars look like.
No, I'm referring to the electric car. I'm using Tesla only because we don't have it in this country.
I think, look, unfortunately, Africa is always a couple of years behind the rest of the world. You tour Amsterdam and there's a lot of Teslas. I think you're going to look at what's the infrastructure like? Who's going to replace these? There's been a lot of hybrid cars, Honda, battery problems, Lexus, battery, and they got 10-year warranties, and a lot of them honor those warranties. Load shedding is an issue. You might end up not. I think we just some places just too rural for it. I think you're going to look at every product. Toyota's successful because there's a lot of dealers. Mazda's as good a car. Not a lot of big footprint in South Africa.
But then you look at the USA and in Canada, where I spent quite a bit of time, Mazda's rotten.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, Australia. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Mazda.
Compared to a Toyota.
Yeah.
Car-wise, I'm not talking about the SUV, I mean the Land Cruisers. But yeah, it's the way it is.
So I think it's, if you're in Kimberley, for instance, and you buy a Subaru, you know you're going to have to drive to Bloemfontein. And I think it's what your preference are. I think it's all about, I think the technology is there. I think, remember, the manufacturers are there to make money. They can't make money up front anymore as they used to on cars. Where do they make it? They make it on spares. They make it on servicing. Longer warranties, longer servicing. You got to go back there. It's getting ridiculously expensive, some of the servicing on some of the brands. That, you know, if you've got a year left on a long, let's say 5-year warranty, that last service you look at it and think, you know, for this couple of $1,000, I could have it done at a quarter and have change if something goes wrong. And I think it's just become complicated. There's a lot of brands. I mean, when we started selling cars, 90s, you had a Mazda 323, you had a sedan or hatch, and you had a 3906, and you had Toyota. It was a very limited...
Ford Fiesta looked identical to the Mazda.
And the Soho, a lot of it was copied. It was MMI.
Yeah.
And you had Volkswagen, you had City Golf, you had Jetta, you had Golf. There wasn't a lot to pick from. I mean, 2.4 Hilux bakkie.
Yeah.
It's probably the heaviest thing you could ever drive anywhere, and they sold.
They did wrong. We had no choices those days apart from the few
Was
other
that
things
or
they did
Isuzu?
around.
You know, Isuzu came with a calendar instead of a Speedo.
Cuck funny. Oh gosh. Someone was saying what I don't know. I saw a program or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I tried to find out, and I've asked all the previous the dealers we've been to their thoughts on on electric cars coming into the market. And your first statement that Africa or South Africa, let's stay with us. We don't have, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, have the infrastructure to make these things go from point A to point B, safely. And secondly, our statistics of crime and all these things brings me to the point where, as they put this little tower in for you to charge before the oaks in the bakkie, it's gone.
Or there'll be 400,000 illegal connections to it.
So and look, it's a great idea, I think, and the only thing I find funny is that the government doesn't have a subsidy, to make it to push you in that direction. Is that because you think? That's what I think. They don't have the will to provide the infrastructure.
No, I think our market's too small compared to the world. If you ever been to Vietnam or Thailand, Vietnam's probably the best. You go to Ho Chi Minh City and you see the amount of scooters there and motorbikes. There's more bikes there than the whole of South Africa. So our market is so small. Again, electrical cars cost. We're sitting at 17 point something to the dollar, 22 something to the pound. We're going to sell something. Why? I mean, you're in the business of exotic cars.
Yeah,
why do oaks export them? Because of the power of the pound and the euro and the...
Someone said the other day, the electric cars are so expensive compared to the petrol or diesel cars, or maybe even hybrids. But only the Group A income levels can afford it, is people to show off that they can do something for the environment, which I thought was quite quite hilarious.
And then you get arrested when you go to ship to Gaza.
Then you can't. then you can't drive from Cape Town to George in one stint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
and the problem is as well as those electric cars, they don't, for South African market, they get nowhere where oaks can put in brandy and Coke. So they got these little flask warmers and that. So there's no place where you can safely put a double brandy and Coke in your Hilux. That's what Hilux sits on the side, so it's easy accessible.
Yeah, my daughter has a hybrid Toyota Land Cruiser, take note, in Canada. And the cup holders can't even takes a little, but it can't take a Stanley Cup. You know what a Stanley Cup is?
Yeah, I know what a Stanley Cup is, yeah.
A Stanley Cup.
They're making a comeback now, Stanley.
No, you have to look, I'm at my age, I know what a Stanley Cup is. That's major. Do you think that hybrid is a better way? I mean, we have had the Toyota Prius, which I've been fortunate to own one.
Again, I think cost.
Don't you think it's also where the car and the market should be? You look at talking about the Prius now. It's the car for mommy to take kids to school. It's a city car. It's not. It was never designed. I don't think it was designed to actually leave Cape Town.
Yeah, but I mean, they designed it like that little iron from Monopoly. I mean, that also didn't help. The looks didn't help the car.
Okay. I got that.
Yeah, look, it's the same with diesel cars. Diesel was very popular, or still is very popular. But if you don't commute long distance once, twice a week at least, doing 50, 70 Ks, the combustion, your build-up, your carbon build-up.
You bought wrong.
You bought wrong. I mean, you look at little Suzuki, it's a hot brand at the moment. Why would you want to spend all that extra money on a diesel vehicle? We could go and buy a Swift that averages between 16.5 and 20 Ks on a litre. The petrol engines are so advanced now.
100%.
So, look, there's a lot of problematic cars that some of these 1 litre motors where the fuel quality is not
but I mean,
good. But we don't get, our diesel's also not the quality it used to be. So you're getting a lot more injector problems. Your servicing is a lot frequent.
Yeah.
But you go back to the farmer market, and now I'll get back to where you were.
It has an application.
If you're a farmer,
you're
not going to buy petrol. That's it. So you've got to look at what you need and what suits
I must tell you something, and I think we spoke it earlier. I drove back from Port Elizabeth, not that other name, I can't pronounce it.
Klimberga.
Whatever. And someone asked me to bring the car back to Cape Town, and it was a 2021 Audi A3 black edition, right? Well, and the car was black.
In white?
No, it was actually black.
I was checking.
The windows were black, everything was black, and it had like a couple of Ks on. And
I figure it's reverse racism.
No, it's not.
Or reverse BE.
So I wasn't really concerned about the color purely because of the fact that I otherwise I would have had to pay 4,000 Rand or take a bus to Cape Town. It's a free drive, I had to put some petrol in. And I drove this into Cape Town. And, let me tell you, this little car was so advanced for this little thing. Paddle shifts, and all the other stuff. And the way this thing was going through the toll road there in the Eastern Cape somewhere at an unbelievable rate of knots. I thought this was one of those little 2-litre GTI turbocharged 174 or 200,000 kilowatts and all those things. I need to find out 2 days after I've dropped the car off in Cape Town. It's only a 1.4 litre turbo. It is frightening.
Yeah.
As you said, what they do to these little cars.
No, it's scary. It's absolutely scary. And getting back to the Chinese cars, we sold our bus and I gave my wife a Cherry Tiggo Pro 4. And it was the normal entry-level ex-rental automatic 1500 non-turbo. A little bit underpowered, but the car had everything in it. And the build quality inside...
The application was right. It's in town.
Yeah. And enough boot space, a lot of modern features. And she's got an older Merc, with like 50,000 Ks on a car, 10 odd years old. And we drove the other day and I said, if you ever told anybody in 2013 that Merc was manufactured, that the Chinese would build a car that drives nearly as comfortable as this, I would say, you're mad. And that's where they've come. Remember, the Chinese are good at copy and pasting. So when they had their stint to Jaguar, Land Rover, they're good at copy and pasting.
And they're buying the best engineers in the world.
What worries me...
What did we all say many years ago?
Hyundai.
Many years ago, remember those were a little bit more mature. When Accent came, Hyundai Accent, you know those little purple and green things?
Yeah.
They were horrible, but they never broke down.
Imagine when my mom bought in 1986, she bought a Honda Ballard from Nieuwval Motors in Vereniging.
Wow.
Mercedes dealer.
This is.
Mr. Milan was still the dealer principal there. And for a German company to sell a Japanese product was like, how can you buy it? Rather buy the Nissan, rather buy the Toyota.
The Honda was great.
Probably, I mean, my mom had probably 6-7 Hondas after that. Still one of the best products I think you can buy.
But you know, I don't think they make bad cars anymore, shitty cars anymore. They make bad looking cars. But I mean, these cars coming from the Far East are so pretty.
What just concerns me, and this is from a used cars perspective, the biggest swear word in our game is after sales. Something goes wrong. And it's all nice, all these fancy LCD screens and touch this and phone chargers, and those things can go wrong. And that worries me a bit in long term for our industry. And secondly is, I'm not so much worried, engine and gearbox can break. CV joints can go. I'm worried about how is everything what you can't see. How is those little electric connectors under the dashes? How's the central locking pump? Are those quality Timo products? Or are they good products?
Well, thank goodness it doesn't come from IKEA. Eh? Yeah, you know, I think, but you know, South Africans per se, in my mind, the motorist out there, is not really, I don't think, you know, they don't keep their cars 20 years. Cheers, Patrick. Cheers, guys. They don't keep their cars for 10, 15 years anymore. You know, they drive for 3-4 years and then they trade it in and they either buy the same car or they come to you and they see a nice little family or their profile changes with kids, you know, children, things like that, and they might upgrade a little SUV, that kind of thing. So I don't think, but South Africans per se are petrol heads.
Yeah, but also saying that, the cars are getting more and more expensive. So some people need to buy older. And with the price going up, you're getting a higher risk vehicle. And I think a good thing is the banks offering, like some of the major banks, longer terms. A lot of my friends, I would say, instead of buying your son a 100,000 car, buy him that car over 84 months. And when he's finished studying after 3 years, he's got a job, he can pay his own car. It's good enough.
Is that the time that we got?
Yeah, 84, 96 on a 1 year old. And they're doing it to eliminate residuals because you're more in control of it. If you can afford more, you can pay it off quicker. And sometimes you find that Oak took a residual and his life changed. He's bought a house. Now he's paid a car for 6 years.
It was such a
now the banks don't want to finance you because your NCA2 score's too low. Now, I can't get finance. Now I've got to sell the car, but I paid it off for 6 years, buy that 50,000
I remember the days the car came in and then you make a trade-in offer, which is the market-related trade-in offer, and then the residual was higher than the trade.
Yeah, getting to that
scary.
as well.
That's very scary.
I think that also Mead and McGrowder, and I'll say this, and I think they just falling by the wayside. They're not market-related anymore.
100%.
And I think it's something that needs to be addressed. There's a lot of other companies who, and I think that's why We Buy Cars have been successful with using algorithms. Look, algorithms as good as, because algorithms go out when there's not enough data. And I've bought a lot of Peugeots, for instance, 2-litre diesels, because it's a very good motor in those cars, either the 92 or 120 kilowatt motor. I bought a lot of them very cheap, because there's no algorithm to to say, listen, this car's good. But as soon as you go to a Toyota brand, there's a lot of them. So it goes up, Polo goes up. So there's still a lot of brands, I think, that you can back if you know the product, but you got to have enough experience with it. And today I told somebody, I said, it's a good car, but you got to catch somebody else with it, because I've had one. And
don't you think? I think this is only me, my opinion. I think that Mead & McGrather is out of touch with reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, and the worst part of that is now you have, Mead & McGrather says the car is trade 190, retail 225. Let's take it. But now you have sold this car in real life. Not out of in real life, you're selling this car for 295. The insurance company says, no, I don't want to do that because the book says this. Peter McGrather has a little book, which is totally out of context of where they are. Remember, in their office.
It's a guideline, eh? Yeah. And that's where people don't realize.
That's right.
It's a guideline. So I love our low mileage car. I'll buy older Mercs, a low mileage.
Listen,
me too. 10-year-old, 15-year-old car, 50,000 Ks.
I don't care about the color as long as the mileage is low.
Yeah.
Because once you're in the car, you can't see the color.
And then you still have brokers that phone you and say, but your car's overbooked. Says, no, but I've got another one of 190,000 Ks on. That's on retail value. Somewhere you've got to factor in condition. And remember the books you used to open at the back plus 10%.
Remember that?
Can add it.
They don't have that anymore.
Oh, well, I can't deliver it because they use the post office. So if you want books,
well, if you
have to pay extra for them to courier to you.
One of the last 10 years, I haven't received my book, and I keep on paying subscriptions.
Yeah.
We go to the post office, and it's probably lying in a heap somewhere. Remember the little grey bag, the little grey plastic bag.
Double with the little magnet that closed it.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of the fun, and we spoke about it earlier, it's about a lot of the fun in the motor trade has fallen by the wayside. Yeah. And that unfortunately is, corporate's got a lot to do with it. People, a lot of, remember in our days when we started, Automark would not touch a car that had more than 30,000 Ks on, or older than 2 years. Your master car. Now,
Pedigree was the same, remember?
Yeah.
The one owner car. That was their slogan.
The
one owner car, Pedigree.
And now a lot of these big franchises become used car dealers. But they sometimes forget to sell the new car because they're so fixated on the trade-in, making a wholesale profit or getting onto the used. They forget to sell the new car, and people are shopping around. You can make 10 calls and get 10 different quotes on a new car product now without seeing the car.
Yeah.
That's how cutthroat it's become. Too many dealers, too many. It's like malls. There's too many being opened. There's one here, so let's open another one there. And it's all about getting tenants in. It's about getting feet there. But the cake's the cake's that big.
Anyway, so on that note that you're now talking about, and we have now seen it, I mean, you're obviously on the ball with it all the time. Following on to what you're saying, the corporates are now moving from concentration. For some reason, they can't do both, can they? They can't do new, and they can't. Neither here nor there. We see flying through the newspapers and the news, Audi, I think Audi is one, BMW is another one, VW is another one, Mercedes another one, and they are cutting the retail centers, down, they're cutting manufacturing. I mean, the pure fact that Volkswagen is saying, listen, we're here to make money, not to sit around, paying wages. That's scary stuff.
Very scary. I mean, you look at Goodyear Factory. I mean, that's one of the hard.
That was PE,
64,000 employees.
Yeah. That's only there.
That's only there, yeah. That's not the
from where the raw material comes from somewhere else. Those are also a bunch of people.
And then you look at Mahindra now saying they're going to open a plant, but are they going to employ South Africans? Or is it going to be another Chinese plant where half the employees are Chinese? Yeah. So I think that's a political thing. That's above our pay grade, and I don't.
No, sure it is, but it makes us people down on the street sitting here, you're having a beer and having a glass of wine, and we are the normal people that has to go out there and buy a vehicle for our kid going to varsity or something, or you need a car for your wife, or you need to replace your little family sedan. it eventually goes all the way
Filters
down to the
down.
bottom. Because the bottom, that's where it is. You know, you look at, you talking about new cars just now. I mean, have you seen the price of new cars? I mean, it is frightening.
A million rand, and you're not getting too fancy.
Yeah, I'm not used. I mean, there's a double cab bucky out there at the moment for 1.1 bar. I mean, who the heck buys a bucky?
Then you're buying a basic bucky. You haven't had a canopy on for 80 grand. And
I'm about to touch somewhere, you know. I'm obviously must stop reading the scope, you know.
You still get scope.
I remember centre page.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's funny. Eh? Some of you will remember those. And that's what it is. And the used car market has to start blossoming again because
I think
it all affects down. If there's no new car sold, where are the rest of the cars? And I think, maybe you agree or disagree, is a lot of people are deciding, hang on, let me hold on to my car for another year.
Absolutely. You can see I've got 2 or 3 friends, one I use quite regularly, that own workshops, and the oaks are doing well. A lot of people are spending 10 grand on their car, taking it in, do a little bit of suspension work, do new brakes, and the cars last. Remember, engines back in the day, 150,000 K, started using oil. Now motors
can run 500,000.
They either break at 100 or they go 300 to 4,500.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of brands that I don't really buy over 150,000 kilometers, but there's a couple of brands I would stick my head out. D4D motor.
You can buy my car for over 150 grand. It's a diesel.
Kilometers.
Oh, 304,000 kilometers. It's like brand new.
What do you drive?
And I bumped it this morning into a lady's car. She just sent me a mail. I left my car in the window. Wasn't that great? She loves me. She thinks I'm amazing.
With a can opener. Tell her not to park so close to you.
No, I didn't. No, that didn't.
Yeah, maybe I've been...
No,
just to suggest that maybe you should stop driving.
What I'm saying to you, I took my vehicle the other day to the orange and black numbers, you know, the ones that buy something, you know. We buy ladies. And they offered
That's why they foot Trekker Road.
Yeah, this one was here in Brackenfell, I think. They offered me a stupendous amount of money for this thing, for 304,000 Ks on. But the condition of the car, no, let's go back, forget the mileage now. The condition,
And
I walk up to
how was
it,
it kept?
it's magnificent. How's the service books? To date, up to date. And for every service there's an invoice. Spare keys. You've got to have spare keys. Don't tell me you can't have spare keys. So insurance companies are now getting...
This out, no? You can cut this out.
He's opening a beer. Folks, he's opening a beer. But while he's doing that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we are continuing with this whole thing for next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And there are dealers out there. If you're a VMG client and dealer, please contact us if you want to be on this little YouTube expansion of ours. Thank you very much. We'll even bring our own wine next time. But thank you, Morne, for the wine. A last word from you for these folks, and for us, and for for the people out there.
Our thing,
buyers,
and this
sellers.
is not a motor trade thing. This is a life thing. Yeah. Things are not easy, but generally we get along. South Africans get along. There's a lot of incitement, and people going one way and people going the other way, and just do what we do. We're a great nation. Eh?
Yeah.
We're a great nation.
Forget the politics and move on.
We fight. We live and let live, and just never give up. Eh? Never give up. It's one of the biggest things I teach my kids.
What are those stickers you always see on these old Land Rovers? What's it? One life.
Live it.
Live it. I think it's so great.
That is, absolutely.
And I can't believe a Land Rover person thought that out.
Yeah, well, they got a lot of free time.
Sorry, Land Rover owners.
Listen, on that note, if I kept every Land Rover I had in my life, I would have been a very rich man with the prices those Defenders are fetching nowadays. Eh?
Oh, yes. Okay. No. I'm not going to say. Anyway, Morne.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was very nervous about this.
Thank you very much for joining us on this case. Don't forget again, like and subscribe. and we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.